case that Donald Trump, the Republicans have been banking on. The fact that amidst all of this, Donald Trump has come out and put that list which does not include India. Does it really mean that Indians are not really a liability as many would like them to see, but actually those who are helping the US economy? Let's open this up. Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, is joining us here. Republican strategist Erol Morkoc is also joining us. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us here on this edition. Mr. Morkoc, I'd like to begin by asking you, the fact that Donald Trump has put out this list of over 100 countries of people from those particular countries that live on welfare assistance from the United States, and India does not feature on the list. Why do you think that is?
Yes, historically, Indian American immigrants or Indian Americans domestically have been some of the most successful immigrant story we have, whether that be in the business sector or the medical sector or all across sciences. So I think the recent, as you mentioned in your monologue about the uptick in anti-Indian sentiment, a lot of that has come to do with abuses inside the H1B1 system, things that have taken away jobs in the tech sector, for example, from people. Now, I think that including India wouldn't have made any sense in the most part, because historically, until you maybe look at some of the data, if you want to look at Americans who've been displaced from jobs, for example, in the tech sector, Indians have contributed quite a lot. So I don't think there's anybody out there who's ever said that Indian people are on the dole or Indian people are taking advantage and not contributing. I think a lot of people who have had issues with misuse of loans and misuses of certain programs. But as far as contributions,
but why single out Indians only then? I mean, why are only Indian immigrants then labeled as third world invaders, or that how they bring about their whole village to the United States? I mean, with their own admission, Indians and Indian immigrants have contributed to the Indian economy using that very program that now seems to be under question.
Oh, absolutely. And the H1B1 program, in many respects, is a positive program, but a program that's completely gone a little bit out of the purview of its intended beginnings. Now, bringing over people for highly skilled jobs Americans can't do, that's what H1B1's for. And bringing over immensely talented people to work in our tech sectors and medical sectors, absolutely. The abuse comes when people use those H1B1 visas to staff hotels or to staff other parts of businesses that don't need it. And that's where the pushback has come. As the Indians are the #1 recipients of H1B1, by default, they're going to be statistically the biggest abusers of it. That doesn't mean that every Indian person who's done H1B1 is a fraudster, but certainly the fraud has come to light, and that is what has been some of the pushback. And I think it's notable that Trump did not include India in this list, because Indians are productive people. Indians are people who we want to come over legally and use the system properly. So I think all in all, we're on the same page.
Ashok Sajjanhar, as far as India being out of this list is concerned, and the H1B and the kind of noise that we've seen around the H1B and Indians using or misusing that program is concerned, if there is misuse, as there would be in several other systems or laws or schemes like the H1B, isn't it the problem of not the people who are using or misusing that, but the fact that it's allowed to happen? I mean, isn't the problem really on America's side? Ashok Sajjanhar.
Very interesting, because culturally the answer is...
I'll come back to you, Mr. Morkoc. Ashok Sajjanhar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Poonam. You're very right. Absolutely. I think as far as it might need, as far as H1B is concerned, it does not need a full overhaul. That means turning it onto its head. It might need some tweaking here and there. Wherever there have been misuses, take care of those misuses, and so that, the whole program does not get off the rails completely. I think it needs to be recognized at the highest levels, and those who are using these H1B, as far as the enterprises are concerned, the big tech companies that are concerned, whether it's Facebook or it is, Meta or Google or all the others, that the dominance of the United States as far as high tech in the world is concerned is quite significantly due to the presence of those who have come from India under the H1B. Also, you see that it is not only that Indians don't take from the US system but they contribute to the US system is also because they're very hardworking. They're also the most highly educated out of the all the immigrant communities, and that is what makes them what they are in terms of what you mentioned, Poonam, about 151,000, 156,000, etc. While the normal earning levels are in the range of about 100,000 or 120,000. That is because they have value which they are offering. As far as the salary levels are concerned, it is not because of the flaws and the errors in the H1B visa. If there are problems in the H1B visa, if it is being misused, by all means, I don't think anyone has a case that it should continue to be misused. Not at all. But I think the talent that is coming, which cannot be replaced by the United States, because by doing things like this, that by throwing what one would say the baby out with the bath water, America would be shooting itself in the foot. You are not allowing the Indian high-tech people to come in. You don't have your own people who can really replace them. And the worst sufferers will be the American industry. I think as far as these people are concerned, there are so many. The day on which 100,000 H1B visa fee was announced, China had announced its own K visa, which is to attract all these people, to provide all the facilities to them. Europe is very keen. Germany had come out and said, we are willing to invite and host the Indian high-tech people. So I think America should also, not a very parochial, limited way, the last point that it should be looking at, the last point maybe that I'll make is that you find this anti-Indian sentiment that is there in the United States. Maybe it is also a matter of jealousy, because Indians are doing so well, but Indians are doing so well by sheer dint of hard work and focusing on education, studies, STEM, which the Americans are not willing to take up. So if
When you have immigrants who are not in that very top immigrant group who come over. Now, when you have H1B1 in terms of engineering, yes, we need the world's top engineers, but we don't need your 5% engineers. We don't need your 3% engineers. We need your 1% engineers. Anything under the 1%, we actually have our own American engineers. Imagine we went to the moon, we built the American.
You've got a big new website idea and the team loves it. Instead of taking months to build it, why not just use Framer? With Framer, designing is building. No handoffs, no waiting. Build your full website. Build landing pages. Build anything. With a robust CMS and everything you need for great SEO, big teams worldwide love Framer. Design and launch all in one place. With enterprise security, 24/7 support, and 99.99% uptime, Framer is ready for your biggest ideas. Let's build.
Supposed to exploit the gaps. So when you start to see things trickle in, you start to see corporate boards go all one way, or if you've worked in Silicon Valley like I do, you see Indian people work together and they bring their own people up. And eventually it creates a situation where there is not equality in certain areas. And that's where the tech sector and people who have had this pushback have come back and said, this isn't quite what we intended. Getting the very top guy to go to SpaceX is fantastic. Getting a level 3 Google engineer to come to Google, well, we can find that guy anywhere. It's a free open market for competitive ideas. Fantastic scientists, but they're not the only scientists in the world. Turkey has scientists, China has scientists, Pakistan has scientists. Many countries would love to send their top 1% to America.
But why
So the
fault
problem
Indians
is-
to use a system that exists? I mean, it's not that these Indians are illegally coming into the United States and taking away jobs of Americans.
So that's a cultural difference that we have. It's very curious you brought it up. The system that exists, it exists in a high trust society. If we build a high trust society, then we leave open gaps. Those open gaps aren't there to be exploited. That's a cultural difference. So when you blame the people for leaving the gaps, it doesn't translate to the Western thinking because you're not supposed to exploit the gaps. So when you start to see things trickle in and you start to see corporate boards go all one way, or if you've worked in Silicon Valley like I do, you see Indian people work together and they bring their own people up. And eventually it creates a situation where there is not equality in certain areas. And that's where the tech sector and people who have had this pushback have come back and said this isn't quite what we intended. Getting the very top guy to go to SpaceX is fantastic. Getting a level 3 Google engineer to come to Google, well, we can find that guy anywhere. It's a free open market for competitive ideas, and India is overweight in their applications to H1B1, and that is likely where all of this resentment is coming because other countries, probably more than Americans, other countries resent Indians for having this access, and a lot of them probably are creating the anti-Indian sentiment. As you can see online, there's a lot of interesting actors. Ultimately, what people don't want to see is the American high trust system be abused. And I don't think Indians in America want to see that either. They don't want to see themselves be compared to fraudsters and criminals when for 50 years, the Indian diaspora in America has been prompt, professional, tax-paying patriots, somebody who everybody, I think, looks up to and certainly doesn't see as a negative influence whatsoever. It's the very recent change that is affecting everybody in every immigrant community, myself included as a Turkish immigrant. And what we want to do is make sure that we keep our immigrant communities safe of these accusations by self-policing our own behavior. And I think that would be wise in the Indian community in America today.
Ashok, Sajjanhar, I saw you smiling there while this conversation was going on. I mean, do you think this is just, it's point in the other direction because that's convenient? Is that what is happening here? I mean, by sheer numbers, India would, if you look at how many Indians use the H1B visa, then perhaps the number that misuse it also would be much larger compared to anybody because that's an absolute numbers. It's just maths there. Because of that, Ambassador Sajjanhar, to generalize Indians and as misusing the H1B visa scheme, isn't that a bit of a stretch?
No, absolutely. It's not bit of a stretch. It's a huge stretch. I think this is very unfortunate what the gentleman is saying that, because of the cultural, meaning what he's trying to say, he's pointing a finger at Indians as if they are culturally corrupt people who are misusing. And if you get Pakistanis and if you get Turkish people, that the misuse will not happen in that case. Meaning that is very unfortunate. This is speaking of a very warped understanding. The people who have come there into the United States, they have lived there as very responsible and respectable citizens. And when they have been invited there, they have come in the H1B categories. They have come through, most of them are American companies for which they are working. It is not that, it is, if there are some loose ends, by all means, please sort them out. But this is not the way, as I said, completely and say that, high trust societies and Indians are belying this trust. I totally reject this argument that, the whole world is going according to the high trust and they are culturally more superior in terms of going by those standards and Indians are not. I think Indians have, wherever they have gone, they have acquitted themselves most admirably. Even if you look at, when the British were there, they have taken Indian people as indentured labor. They got away from slavery, but they got another type of slavery, that was the indentured labor. Wherever they have gone, in South America, in Africa, they have risen to the top positions, not through cultural, corruption or anything of that sort, but by sheer dint of hard work. And that is how they have achieved these objectives and the status. Even in the United States, by pointing fingers, I think that is very unfortunate. I could also use some rather sharp words, but I would not like to do that, except to say that I think those who use such expressions should be very mindful that this is not, they have been there. It is not the largest community, but in terms of the contribution that they have made. And if you want to try it out, please, by all means, try it out and you'll find who is the loser and who is the winner. Because for this talent, there will always be demand in the whole world.
Which is
If
also
the
why
United
perhaps we've seen the kind of back and forth, kind of flip-flops over the H1B visa. A lot of changes and clarifications, as they're called, come in every single time something changes. But I want to give the last word to Mr. Morkoc. Last 30 seconds, sir. The kind of data that's now come out, the kind of discussion that we're now having, do you think this is something that will eventually lead to the kind of commentary or the bigotry that we're seeing from a certain section of Republicans or from the MAGAverse to actually pipe down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the dialogue and discourse is the
Your pets are not just your companions, they're family. So when they get
anti-Indian for anything besides localized cases, and I condemn anybody who would paint a broad brush on an entire diaspora for the behaviors of wrongdoers. So I think that these kind of conversations, and as the other gentleman has said, finding those exact people and bringing them out, we both agree anybody who's committing fraud should be brought out. I think with these two things, the future is bright. Again, Indian Americans are some of our best immigrants, some of our best patriots. We love them, and we want to have more of them coming over.
Well, we'll see how this goes, but the statistics put out by the US president there, some would say a slap in the face for those who've been berating Indians, Indian Americans. Some others would say that this is just merely a statistic that perhaps would get buried, but we have to leave it there. I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this edition.